For an example, let's say you're going to sign up with some kind of a website. So there is going to be a form like this, right? Sign up form. So there you are going to provide your username, your email, then password, all these fields you will going to provide, and when you click sign up button, that form will going to get submitted. And in the web server, there will going to be some kind of a PHP file. So in there, we have some kind of code to connect to the database and to acquire the user inputs, and we connect to the database and to store those data to our database. It will store all that user inputs that we take from the form to our MySQL database. So there is going to be some database that we have created, and inside that database there is going to be a table to hold all these values, username, password, email, to hold all those values. There is going to be a table, and once you have submitted it, it will store those data.
So this MySQLi extension, if you take, this will going to act as an interface between our PHP script and our MySQL database. If you take MySQL extension, it was there in PHP version 5 and later. This I stand for the improved version of MySQL because it includes some new features when compared with MySQL extension. So as such, one feature is that MySQLi support both procedural and object-oriented paradigm. Because if you take MySQL extension, it only supports for procedural programming. But MySQLi extension, it supports both these paradigms. But what you need to keep in mind is that it is, of course, possible for you to write these methods. We will going to see this in the next few minutes. When you are writing the code, you can, of course, mix these functions and procedures, but it is not recommended. Your script will work, but it is not recommended because due to the code clarity and all, these are the steps that we need to follow in order to connect to our database. Okay, so before I start writing the code, I will briefly explain to you what are the things that we need to consider. So first, you need to set these database server access variables. Okay, so you need to know what is going to be your server name, the username, password. Okay, if you take the server name, it is the host name that you are running, the database server. So probably in our case, it is going to be localhost. Our server name is localhost. And we need to provide the username. That is the username that we are going to access the database. For us, it's going to be root user because we have the root permission, because we have installed SAM and we have the root permission to access the database. So our username will going to be root. For us, the password is, that part is empty. We don't have any password to access our database, so it will going to be an empty string, and we need to provide the database name. That is the database that we are working on. So as you can remember, last week we created a database called DB product. So that will going to be the database name. So these 4 parameters you need to first set these parameters, and then in order to open the connection, we need to provide this information. So here is how we are going to create our connection to the database. We will provide it like this, new MySQLi, and then you can provide your all the parameters that we have discussed previously. We need to provide each and every of these parameters to this function. The order should be like this. First, you need to provide the server name, and then the username and password, and then the database name. So this is how you're going to open the connection to your database. So once you open this connection, we need to check the database connection, whether it is successfully connected or not. For that, you can use this method called connect error, connect_error, right? And then what you can do is you can simply create your query. It can be a select query, it can be an insert or update, any query that you need to run. You need to provide within double quotation, it will going to be a string. So then you can assign that to some kind of a variable, and then what you need to simply do is to execute that query. In order to execute that query, you have this query method, right? You can pass this query string that you have right here. You can pass that variable to this method, query method. That's where this query is going to execute. This is the main things that we need to keep in mind when creating a database connection and we want to execute some kind of an SQL statement. So let's try to write an insert query. If you can remember, we created a database called DB product, right? There we created a table called TBL_product. And if you take the structure, we created an auto incremented field for the ID. This will going to be the primary key field, and we created a separate column to store the name of this product, P_name, and then there was another column to store the description of this product. This is a simple table with only 3 columns. We will now see how to first insert data to this table with our PHP script. Now for that, first, let's try to create a form. As you can understand, we need to, in order to acquire the user inputs, we need to create a form. So let's first start creating a form. I'm going to say, first I'm going to save this. Let's first try to create our form. So there are mainly 2 attributes that you need to provide. One is method, that is post, and the action, right? The action is we will provide the same script, insert.php. We need the product name. You can have the input field, type is text. Let's have the name as name. This is it, the product name, and then product description. Since this is a description type, we will have a text area for that. Okay. Let's provide a name. EDSC goes for. So this is it. This will going to be our form to take the user inputs. Right. Let's first check whether we have the output that we expected. Let's have product insert. Okay, this is our form to insert the product. Here you need to have the submit button also. That is the important thing, right? You need to have submit. Let's have a name, sub, and a value, submit, right? Okay, you need to have this as well. So once you click submit, only you need to run your PHP script. So let's first write that, because otherwise, as we have discussed last week, it will going to provide errors because user inputs have not yet submitted. So if we are not going to check that part, it will going to provide with errors. So in order to avoid that, first we need to check whether this form is submitted or not. So for that, we are going to write this: if is set $_ post. So this is an array. Okay, we can simply access it like this. I'm going to check whether the btn sub is set. So this is going to be the array value that we are going to check whether it's set or not. And then we can write whatever the things here. Okay, first we'll check whether it will going to submit it correctly. Okay, so in order to access these two inputs, we can say the first one is the product name. So let's say $p name equal $_post p name, right? This is the input field name, right? P name, and then we can say then the description, right? So these are the two variables that we are going to access. Now let's check whether we receive these things. I'm going to say cool. So we will going to check whether we receive these values first. So that it's better that you check these things, because otherwise, if you are going to completely write the script and try to run it, then finding errors will be difficult. So it's the best way as a beginner. The best thing is to write the code part by part and then try to run it and see whether you have any errors in your code. So this way we will be able to find out that. So let's check. I'm going to refresh this and let's try to provide some name, then description. I'm not going to provide any detailed things. Okay. Now here, okay, it's got submitted. Laptop, and then this is the description part, right? So up to that, the script is okay. And now what we are going to do is we are going to connect to the database, and then we will simply going to store these values to our database. Okay, let's try to do that. So the first thing, as I was explaining, you need to set the server access variables, and then you can open the connection to your database. I would say set the variables, right? The access variables. Our server name will be localhost. If this is going to be a live server, then that server might going to have a different name. Yes, there was a question. You can write instead of MySQL, you can use MySQL methods, but once you try to run it, it will provide an error because it will say MySQL extension is obsolete. It is an obsolete extension because it's not recommended to use this. One thing is for the security purpose, because if you take MySQL, one thing is it will provide you with those procedural and object-oriented paradigm, and the other thing is that it will support prepared statements. You just check what prepared statements are because it will prepared statements are the statements we use to eliminate SQL injection. Okay, so MySQL supports these prepared statements also. Problem with MySQL extension is that it didn't support this and it is prone to this SQL injection vulnerabilities. Now here what we are going to do is we will provide the username. In our case it's root and then dollar password. Password is empty, right? And then dollar DB name. This will be our database name, that is DB underscore product. This is our database name, DB underscore product. And this is the table name, TBL underscore product. So here, what you need to provide is the database name, DB underscore product. Okay, once you set these variables, we can simply open the connection to database. Now for that, we need to create this. Okay, new. Then you need to have this MySQL. And then what are the parameters? So the parameters are going to be, first you need to provide the server name. So our server name is assigned to this variable. So we are going to take from that variable server name, and then dollar username. You need to provide it with according to this order. Okay, server name, username, and then password, and then DB name. Right? So simply here it will going to connect to the database, and we are going to assign that connection string to this $con variable. That's what happened. And then what you need to do is you need to check whether the connection is successful or not. By using this method, you can find that out. Connect underscore error. You're checking whether an error has returned. So after this statement, it will try to connect to your database. When trying to connect to the database, if it gets some kind of an error, we will check whether there is some kind of an error, and then if so, we will going to display that and terminate our script from running any further statements. So we will going to have a conditional statement if $con. This is the variable that holds our connection string. That's why we say $con, and then there we have this method called connect underscore error. If you receive some kind of an error, then I said that we are going to terminate this script from running. Now, how can you do that? In PHP, you have this function called die. right? If you write this function from here, if it's going to run this die function, it will not going to run whatever let's say for an example, I have written some kind of other things after this also. So what this die function does is it will not going to run these uh, statements if it finds some kind of an error here. So simply this statement will terminate our script from running any further statements. Let's say die. Inside this function, I'm going to provide this error message saying, let's say connection failed. Save it and try to run that. So I'm going to refresh the answer. I'm going to provide these things, and then once I click submit button, unknown database. Yes, it failed to connect to the database. I have provided the db underscore product. Let's go and check. Yeah, you can see, right? I have provided db underscore product, but our database name is products. What happens here is it executes that die statement. Now in that statement, what we have written is we say if you find some kind of an error connecting to this database, right, then please show this message saying connection failed. Okay, so here it says connection failed. This is my message, and this part unknown database db product, this part came from this section $con connect error, right? So here it executes this die statement. So what I need to change is I need to provide this db products. Now if I'm going to save this and try to run that, let's just refresh this and I'm saying continue. Okay, so no output provided. That means our PHP script up to this point, there are no errors in our PHP script. So we check the connection is successful, and then what you need to do is we did this part, connect, we check the database connection, and then you can create the query. So in this script, I'm going to run insert query. The insert query is this, right? You provide this as insert into, this is the keyword, okay? Then provide your table name that you're going to insert your data. The table name you should provide here. And then this is optional, of course. Within brackets, you can provide the column names like this within brackets, and then provide the values that you're going to insert. Values, and then within brackets, you provide the values here. So this is the simple insert query. So we are going to write the same query. I'm going to say, let's take it into a variable called $SQL, and then within double quotation, you need to provide your query, your table name, TBL underscore product. Let's check whether it's correct. Our database name is DB product, and then table is TBL product. Okay. Okay, TBL product. And then I'm going to provide two data, right? Dollar product name and dollar product description. But if you take now here, you also have the ID field, but it's an auto incremented field. That means whenever you insert something to this database, the ID field automatically have some kind of an incremented value from 1 to whatever the records that you insert, it will auto increment. So you don't need to insert values to this field. And this is of course our primary key field. Normally we have auto incremented fields to these primary key fields. That's why. So when you are writing a insert query, you need to definitely provide the field names also, because we are not providing the ID field. We are going to insert from product name field. Ideally what you need to do is you need to provide the field names. These are the fields I'm going to enter the value, and then these are the values I'm going to submit to this database. So when you are writing the query, this part, the column names part, you need to provide in this query. So let's try to write it. Insert into TBL product. Okay, then within brackets, you need to provide the column names. Column names will going to be P underscore name and P underscore description. These are the two values that we are going to provide. PID will be auto incremented. And then values within brackets, the two values that you're going to provide. That will be dollar P name, comma, dollar P DES. These are the two variables, right? See, the user input, we assigned it to this variable and then we pass that variable to this query. That's all. There was a question asking whether the DB connection is going to establish only after clicking the submit button. Now, according to this script that we have written, okay, according to this script, yes, we are going to open the connection once after this form gets submitted, because we have written that the DB connection part and everything inside this if statement, right? So once the form gets submitted, it will going to connect the database and do all those things. Otherwise, just think now, if you go to this form and let's say soon after you refresh, soon after you load this form, it will try to connect to your database. Creating this connection is some kind of an extra work, right? We just want to connect to the database if this form only gets submitted. So what I have explained is now we create this query, insert query, and then we will provide the name and the description column names, and then values will going to be these variables, because these variables are going to hold the user inputs. So likewise, you can have it like this, and then what you need to do is you need to simply execute the query, because here what it does is only to build this query. Okay, this is just a string. It's not going to execute from this line. Okay, in order to execute that query, we need to provide this string as a parameter to our query method. $con, this is our connection string, and then we will call the method called query. For this, as a parameter, we will provide $SQL. Then finally, what we can say is, okay, if you successfully execute this query, then we can show a message saying the records have inserted successfully. So how to check whether these data got submitted successfully? Now for that also, we have this method called affected rows. It will check whether the table got affected by inserting some data. For that, we have that method called affected rows. if $con, if there are affected rows, we can print a message saying else error in insert. And then finally, what you need to do, you need to close the connection, right? For that, you can get the close method. $con and then close. I'm going to refresh it and then we will have these two, let's say product name, and then when I click submit, okay, it will show the message records inserted successfully. So if you go to your database, I think there is some kind of an error because there are no products inserted there. We'll see. I'm just going to print this SQL, check whether we have written it properly. Okay. Let's try to submit again. So click submit. I'm just going to execute it here. Yes, there is an error. Now I have provide the variable name like this, right? But if you can clearly see here now, you just can't say, since these are p name and p description, we both of these, we provided the data type as varchar, right? If you can remember, we gave these product name and description both as the varchar data type. So if you are going to insert some kind of a varchar data type to a column, that column accepts only string values. So you need to, like this, you need to enclose it with quotation. Okay, like this. That was the error. So let's again update our script and see. I'm not going to run that query in that editor. Okay, I'm going to, now here we have provide our query here, and then these variable names should be enclosed with quotation, right? We'll check and see whether this will going to work. Okay, let's check our database. Yeah, now it has got inserted to our table, right? This is our first record, and if you notice the PID column, there is a value that is auto-generated, so we don't need to bother about that. We just need to provide this other data, name and description, and then it will have each and every record, it will provide an ID of its own. This is how it will going to work, right? What you need to remember is always enclose these variables with quotation, because they are that columns accept only varchar values, so string values. That's why. Okay, if those are integers, then you don't need to consider that. But Since it's varchar, you need to enclose the variable names with single quotation. We first check whether the form is submitted or not. Then we accept the user inputs and then start to set our connection variable, access variables, and then create the connection to the database and check whether the database connection is okay. If so, we simply provide our query that we need to run. Now here it's an insert query because we wanted to insert this data to our table first, and then we will execute that query with the query method and then check whether our table got affected by this query. If so, we will going to show the success message. Else, we will show the error message to the user and then close the connection. Yes, I will add some more records to our table with the same form. We will going to need 2-3 records in our table. I will going to say, right, okay, let's check that whether it's inserted. Yes, it was inserted, right? Then add some other product. Okay, whatever the product list that you are going to insert, you can provide that. Yes. Now we have 5 records in our product table. Now we are going to do is we will going to display these products for our user. So how to do that? Okay, take a new file and then here, now what we are going to do is we are going to display all the products in our table. Now for that, again, what you need to do is you need to create the database connection. Okay. And since this is going to be, I'm not going to not going to embed the PHP code inside HTML. So I'm going to completely write a PHP script here. So I will start with the PHP tag. Okay. And then, like we did in the insert script, we need to set the access variables and then create the database connection and check whether the connection is successful. That part I'm going to copy from our insert script and I'm going to have it here. So that I will save this as well. Okay, let's say select .php. We will going to have our access variables set and then we can create the database connection like this and then check whether the connection is successful. And your query, now this time your query will going to be a select query. The syntax of the select query will going to be optionally you have this distinct part. Select then distinct part, or otherwise you can provide the column names that you would like to access and display, and then from which table that you're going to get the data, right? The other parts, of course, all those are optional. The simple query that you're going to need is this part, right? Select. If you're going to select the columns that you prefer, then you need to provide what are the columns. Otherwise, if you're going to need to access all those columns, then you can provide select all, right? Select then the asterisk mark so that you can select all the columns from that table. So then it is going to be select all from then your table name, right? If you provide some kind of a condition, then you can have a where clause. And if you are going to order that results, then you can use this order by clause and then provide whether you need it as ascending or descending order. And then you can also provide a limit. I want only the first 5 records. Then you can have this limit clause in your select query. Now what we are going to do is we just omit these things and just have this select all statement, right? I'm going to say $SQL equal within double quotation. Let's say select all from TBL underscore product. This will be our table name. Select all from TBL product. This is the simple query that we need to run, right? So this will going to select the product name and the product description along with the ID field. Okay, those 3 columns it is going to access and display to the user. Right. Now what we can do is, of course, we build the query and then we need to execute it. So that we can say $con query and then provide your SQL here. And since we acquire the records back from our database to our browser, we need to have this in a separate variable. Let's say I'm going to say $results. Okay, because there is an output, and then we will going to check whether we received some number of rows, because the database that we are accessing, it can be an empty database without any data, right? Or it can have some number of records in that table. But if in case that table is empty and it doesn't have any records, we need to first check whether we received some number of records. This is the way we can do that. If $result, okay, this variable holds the output of our query, right? $result, and then there is a method called num underscore rows, right? Num underscore rows. We are checking whether there are some number of rows that we have received. So the condition would be the $result num underscore rows greater than 0. This is going to be our condition. And then if we receive these records, then we can loop through that records. The reason why we need a repetition statement is because we will going to receive an array to this query. First, I will show you what kind of an array that we receive. I'm going to say print r and then dollar, say dollar results, right? Dollar results is an array. I will show you, right? So first, we will run this script, right? Now here, if you can see, it is an array saying, okay, field count is 3 and the number of rows, num underscore rows is 5, right? So if you take our table, yes, we have 5 rows in this table. So if you take that dollar result array, it has this num underscore rows element as 5. So yes, our condition is going to be true. Here, dollar result num underscore rows is greater than 0. Yes, it's greater than 0 because it's 5, it's greater than 0. Then we can go through the each record one by one. For that, we are going to need to write a repetition statement here. Now here, I'm going to write a while statement. Okay, while we can say again dollar result. We have this method called fetch assoc. Now this fetch assoc is we are going to fetch an associative array. Now what is this associative array? Right? An associative array is unlike a normal array where we index our elements with integer values. Associative arrays have indexes defined not with integer values, but maybe it will be some string values there. So I will show you that as well. I'm going to assign this to a variable called record. Okay. And so within this, let me print this to you. Print out. Let's see what dollar record holds. Right. Now see. It will create some kind of an array. Now you're familiar with these values, right? Laptop, then description. These are the values of your table, right? ID, name, description. Yeah, ID, name, description. Yes, now this is an array, but now the indexes are not 0, 1, 2, like not integers, but these are the values of our column name. The table column names have become indexes in this array. So that's why the easiest way is to use this method, fetch assoc. This is the method ideally you can use for this in order to loop through the records that we received. Okay. Now it's simple as accessing each of these values. Right? What you need to do is you can let's have it like this. Let's a list. Okay. So for that, we can have equal. I'm going to say UL. Okay. Let's have a UL line list. Equal again. Since these are HTML tags, I need to provide them within double quotation. Okay. while, and then I can print the list. Let's say li, and then dot operator is the operator that we use to concatenate two strings. So we can say dot and then dollar record. So this is how we can access the values, right? As I have shown to you, this is our array, and it's the same as a normal array that we are going to access each element with the index number. Now here it's not an index number, it's our column name. So you can simply provide the column name, right? Dollar record. I can say I'm going to show the product name and then the product description, one after the other in a list. So I'm going to say dollar record, then P underscore name, right? This is the column name that holds the name of the product, P name, right? Then P underscore. So I'm going to concat again with the dash, okay? And then let's have a product description, so that I can say $rec P underscore DEC. This is the column name of our product description. And then again, I'm going to concat and close our li tag, this tag. That's it. So I will going to have a list of products along with their description. Let's save this, and I'm going to run this, right? If you can see, yeah, here I have mistakenly put closing li tag. I have to change that, the starting li tag and then closing li tag. Then if I'm going to run this, yes, now we get a list of product along with its description. These are the total number of products that we have in our TBL product table. The query will going to select all the products that is available in our product table, and it will list all the values. Connect to database and then check the connection, and then provide a SQL statement, and then execute the query. It will going to return rows of that table. So we are going to iterate through each row of that table and display it in a list along with product name and product description. Without any providing any condition, we select all the products from the table. Both scripts, we provide this access variable, right? This is our access variable, and as you can see, now this part, it is of course a common thing, right? In both the scripts, those information are common. So as we have learned in PHP, there are things called functions. So ideally what we can do is we can have a common function, right? As I was explaining, MySQL supports both object-oriented and procedural paradigm. Now what we have done here is we kind of use this MySQL in a way that it's kind of an procedural way. So without writing it like this, you can write it in a better way. Okay, we will see how we can do that. Let's have a new file. I'm going to save this as eb connection.php. Right now, here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a common class, a connection class. This is where we are going to keep our common credentials and everything. Because if you take now, for an example, if you take this script and let's say you're going to move the whole thing to a new server. From your local server, you have upload these files to your, let's say, a live server, some kind of a live server. Now on a live server, normally you don't get the root permission to access the database. A user is going to create it for you to access the database, and definitely you're going to have a username for that and a password. So what happens now is in the live server, you have to change the whole thing, right? Now in the insert script, you have to go to this script and change here and this place also, and then go to the select script, and then again you have to change the username and the password. You have to change all these places. That is not the proper way. The best way is to have a common database connection class. Then only you are going to have all these things in a single place where you can easily update that script, because you only need to change your connection class and your credentials at a single place. So we'll see how we can do that. Now in PHP, we can create a class like this, class, and you can have a class name. I'm going to say DB connection. Okay, this will going to be my class, and inside this class, you will going to have a function. Say function. Now you know how to write a function in PHP, right? Function. The keyword is function, and then the function name. DB con, right? And this function, there will not going to be any parameters here, right? And then within this function, you can have that common thing. Ideally, this. Right? I'm going to cut the whole thing from here. Right? Just paste it inside this function. Now this is our function. Okay. Right? Now within this function, what we are going to do is we are going to set the access variable here. Okay, provide all these information, and then you will going to write. You're going to connect to the database. It's the same thing, and you check whether the connection is successful, and then finally you need to, since this is a function, you need to return this connection. Return. So this function is going to have some kind of an output. Return $con. Okay. So this will going to return our connection string, so that we can use this function anywhere in our script if we want to create a database connection to our database. Okay. So I'm going to say now in this select script, what we are going to do is, the first thing is
we need to call this the database connection script. We need to include this file on the first place. So we can say include once, right? Then the file name that you're going to use. Here it's db connection. db connection dot within the application store this file name. Since we have a class and a function name here, what we can do is the object oriented way, we can create the object of this class. This is the class that we have defined, right? Now, for that, we can say dollar, say db object, let's say object, db object equal. If we are going to create a class, object of a class, yes, the keyword is the new and then your class name. Our class name is db connection. I'm going to copy and paste this, right? And then, so here what we did, we create an object of the db connection class, right? So this is how we are going to create the object of the class that you have created. And then you can simply call that for the connection function. You can say $db object and then your function name. The function name would be dbcon. Here, let's assign this to a variable. Let's say $con again. And now if I'm going to run this script, it should run correctly. If I have provide these parameters and everything properly, see, now it provides the same output. Nothing has changed. The only thing that we did was we create a connection, a common connection class. Okay, this is our connection class. Okay, so you are familiar with this, right? This is the same thing that we did from the start. We create the connection and say important thing here is definitely return this connection string. Otherwise, it will not going to work, right? Return the connection, and then in this script, if you want to use that connection, first thing you need to do is to include the file that connection class is available. First include that file and then create object of that class, connection class, and then call the function of the class, that connection function. We don't have to change anything afterwards. It's the same, right? So we can change our insert script like this. So now what we are going to do, we don't need this whole thing. Instead, you need to create object of that class and have your connection string assigned to it like this. Now what happened? We removed the whole part of defining those connection variables and all, and we replace it with this connection class. This is the actual way, the proper way you can do this, right? And then you can call connection function, and then afterwards you don't have to change anything because the connection is already established by the connection class. We will run this script as well and check whether it's okay. I'm going to say insert .php, and then let's insert another product label. Then I'm going to submit. Yes, I forgot to include this file. This should also be needed, right? So I'm going to include the connection file here, and then only it will going to identify this class and these functions. Otherwise, it will include it. Let's see again. I'm going to submit this. So record inserted successfully. So this script works the same way. It will not going to change, right? It will work the same way. The only change that we did was replace that access variables and everything with our database connection class. So now you can understand. Now in case if I want to migrate this script to a live server, then I only have to change our connection class. Our connection class is the only place that we will going to change, not this select script. It's not. We don't have to go through this insert script or the select script because we didn't define any connection variables in these scripts, but now we have a common place to hold all those data. It's our connection class. From this point forward, I'm going to use the same database connection class. That is the ideal way. So let's discuss update and delete statements. Let's take a new file. I'm going to save it as update.php. Right here, I can see. So I'm going to completely write a PHP file here without using any HTML forms or anything. So the thing that we are going to use is first include the connection class and then create object of that class and call the connection function. And then we can create the update query, right? Let's say $SQL equal the update query. If you can remember, the syntax is like this. The syntax for update query is update and then your table name, set the column name that you're going to update, and the specific value that you want to update. So it will going to update with this value that you're going to provide, and the condition. Definitely you need to provide the condition, otherwise it will update all the values under that column. So it is compulsory to provide this where clause, where the column name and the value. So probably this is going to be your primary key field, because in any table, the primary key field is the field that is going to identify each record uniquely. So
That's why we provide a primary key field here, because we need to uniquely identify the record that we want to update, and then only after that we uh, get the column name and the value of that record, and then update to whatever the value that we want. Our query is going to be update then the table name PBL underscore product set. Then let's say I want to update this name laptop into some laptop name. Let's say Dell. I want to update this product name into Dell. The column name is P underscore name equal. Then you need to provide the value you need to update into it. Let's say within quotation we need to provide, otherwise it will not going to work. Okay, this is going to be our update query. And the important thing is you need to provide the condition, which record that you need to update. Otherwise, it will update the product name as there in all the columns, all the record, right? Where our primary key field is ID field. We have P underscore ID. This is the column that will uniquely identify each of these records, because if you take this product name, there can be another record with the same name. But the primary key field, the difference is it will not going to repeat the same value in this column, because it's the primary key field, and that is the only column that will going to uniquely identify your records. Underscore ID equal ID equal. So ID is an integer value. I can simply say 1. Okay, this is the record that I need to update, and this is the value I'm going to update. Laptop into Dell. So let's go ahead and try to, yeah, before that we need to execute the query $con query $SQL. And then we check whether the update is successful or not. Now for that, we again are going to use the method affected rows. From that only we will going to identify whether there is some kind of a change in our table or not. Okay. So we will say if $coin affected rows, it should be greater than 0. If so, we will print records updated success.
successfully. Otherwise, we are going to say error in update. Right. So that's it. Also, you can close the connection. $con close. So this is it. So let's go ahead and run this and see whether it will go and work. Update.php. Yes. So in a single execution, our script executed and showed the results, records updated successfully. Directly execute this update statement and show the message that we have provided, the success message. Let's go and see. This is our database. Okay, it's still the laptop, but if I'm going to refresh this, now see our product name changed into the value that we have provided. Product name, now it's there, the first product name. So I will quickly explain the delete statement also, right? So this is the update statement. What we did was, now we have a connection class for our database connection. We first include that file and then create a database connection, create the object of that class, and then call the connection function, and then we build our query, update query, and then we execute the query, and then based on the affected rows, we check whether there are any affected rows in our product table. If so, we showed the success message. Yes, we are going to show the error message, and then finally close the database connection. So this is the script. And I'm going to quickly explain to you how we can write a delete script. So I'm going to first save this as say delete .php, and then I'm going to completely write a PHP script here. So the same thing goes, include the file and then create the connection object, and then build the query $SQL, delete query syntax, delete, then from, and your table name. Provide your table name, and definitely you need to have a connection, a condition where which record that you need to delete. Otherwise, it will going to delete all the records in that table. So you don't want to happen that. This is going to be your primary key field. So I'm going to write the query, delete from, right? Then your table name and your condition. TBL underscore product, and your condition will be where the column name, our primary key field is P underscore ID equal, then your ID. Let's say I want to delete this Lenovo product. Okay, so the ID is 5. So I'm going to say PID equal 5. That's it. This is our delete query. And you need to execute that $con and then query $SQL, and then we check whether $con then
Same thing, affected underscore rows. Any rows got affected. If it's yes, then we will print record deleted. Let's say record deleted. Right, else delete error. Right, then close the condition. $con close. That's it. Right? So you can clearly understand. Go and run this script. Delete.php. So I'm going to say delete.php. So yeah, record deleted. Let's go to your table and then still this is the record that we wanted to remove. Let's refresh this and see. Yeah, the record removed successfully. Now there is no such record as 5, number 5. Okay, so the delete statement was successful.